Welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast with me, Fred Joyal, where I interview amazing dental practice owners digging into their successes and failures, their insights and hindsights, getting their views on where dentistry is going, and discovering what it took for them to become remarkable. Welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and on each episode, I talk with an amazing dentist who's had an interesting career, and we're going to talk about the twists and turns of their career. With me today is Dr. Carolyn Walker, who is in Leon Springs, Texas, and has a very interesting practice that we're going to hear all about. Carolyn, welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast.
Hi, Fred. How you doing today?
Oh, it's been an exciting day all around, but I'm really looking forward to digging into your journey. And so how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing since 2001, so a little over 20 years.
Wow. And where'd you go to dental school?
In San Antonio.
Oh, okay. And you have your own practice. Give us the dimensions of your practice, how many chairs, things like that.
Okay, so I have 9 operatories. I have about 4,500 square feet in the office. I started out in a smaller practice with 4 chairs and about 1,700 square feet in 2001. So practice has grown substantially.
And do you have associates?
I do. I have, right now I have 1 associate. I've got 2 that are getting ready to come on board. And I just hired a 3rd hygienist.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So let's go back in time here and find out how the heck you got into dentistry. How did this happen?
Well, when I was still in high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And a friend of my parents suggested that I try dental hygiene. And so I started in the health occupations program in high school and started assisting with the young doctor in Harlingen, where I grew up, and went from there. My love of dentistry just grew. And when it got to the point where I had to decide between going to hygiene school or going to dental school, I chose to go to dental school.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, big difference. Big difference.
That was a bold move. As somebody who talks a lot about boldness, I admire you saying, hygienist, dentist, I think I'll go for the really difficult one. So good for you. And how was it? Was it men were still kind of the majority of students at that point?
Yes.
And did you find that you were smarter than all the guys?
Well, of course. Well, I had quite an advantage because I was a dental assistant before. So, starting with the eye-hand coordination, I really had kind of an advantage over most people that hadn't done any pre-treatment or pre-work with patients at all.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because they don't get any hand skills as an undergrad. And no. and it really starts, second year, I guess, as much in dental
school. Third year.
Yeah.
Minor, a little bit.
Yeah. So that's you definitely had an edge. That's great. And all right, so you knew you wanted to go into dentistry really early on, but what surprised you about it when you finally got into it, and when you graduated, maybe in school too, but really when you got out and you started practicing, and over the course of your career, is this something that you just said, wow, I didn't expect this?
I think it was mostly the business part, Fred. Dentistry, I felt like I had a really good handle on it. But I graduated and went right out and opened my own practice. And it was like walking into a cave without a light. I mean, you are not prepared for that at all. And from when I originally started my practice to now, I have learned so much about what to do and what not to do in a dental practice. And I learned a lot of the what not to do's before I learned what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, by doing them and saying,
Yes.
yeah, I shouldn't do that anymore.
That wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, that sounds like how I started my business. We called it a series of survivable mistakes.
Exactly.
And did you buy a practice? Did you just hang out a sign and
That's about it. I was the only dentist in the area for about probably about 15 years. And I just went out, built out a practice, and started working there, and worked in a different office as an associate for about 6 years while I built my practice up.
Oh, wow. Okay. So very interesting strategy. So you had income as an associate, but you were also building your own practice in Leon Springs. Is that where you started? Was in Leon Springs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which is near San Antonio, for
Right.
those of you who are geographically curious. So what's the population of Leon Springs?
I don't really know. It's grown so much. It's kind of a suburb. We call it our own little town, but it's really a suburb of San Antonio. So I don't know, but it's definitely grown in the last 10 years. It's gotten crazy out here. So it's really busy.
Yeah, well, and that's true of a lot of Texas, I guess. And
Yeah.
so you rode a nice wave of population growth, which allowed you to grow your practice. And
Right.
so the next thing you did was expand the practice. Did you move to do it, or did you have the space?
I moved about 250 yards next door into a brand new building. And like I said, I went from 1,700 to almost 4,500 square feet in that building. And as a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to add on another 1,500 square feet downstairs to start a surgical suite downstairs for my practice.
Give us a rundown on the technology that you use. I'm guessing cone beam. If you're running a surgical suite, you've
Yes.
got
I've got a CT. Yes, I've got a CBCT. I also have a Solea laser, which I do sleep therapy with that now, and there's so many things I can do with it. I also have the technology to do same day crowns in office. What else do I have? I have the lab equipment to make night guards in the office, to print surgical splints. Just about anything you can think of, I have, except an endo microscope. That's the one thing I don't have.
So when did you start getting coaching? When did you realize you needed help and found Fortune Management?
Probably in my second year in my new building, which was about 2016, 16 or 17, one of those. I just was kind of stagnant, and my practice wasn't really growing anymore because if you don't have a goal, you can't grow, because you don't know your numbers, you don't know how to improve. And a friend of mine mentioned that I got together with a fortune coach, and the rest is history. My practice expanded from right around 725,000 to 2.5 to almost 3 million a year.
Okay,
just measuring goals.
just by laying out your goals and scheduling to goal.
Right.
Wow, that's substantial. That's tripling in size.
Yeah.
That's that's impressive. But for anybody in any industry, did you experience a greater profitability as well when you did that?
Yes, absolutely. Because again, we're learning to measure goals and measure profit versus loss, and it was just amazing just knowing how to measure your goals, measure your production, measure your collections, just things that before I just kind of rode the wave and never really knew why I was doing it. Just went in and did my dentistry.
That's a phenomenal growth, but it really speaks to, if you're not aiming for anything, you don't hit anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
and you had the capability of just expanding and expanding. You had the growing neighborhood to work with,
Right.
and you're still doing it. So is there someone in your career that was influential, was highly influential to you?
Yes. When I was first moved to San Antonio, I went to work for a dentist here. And he's the person that really made me make that decision between going to hygiene school or going on to dental school. Because at the time I had 2 children, had no college under my belt, and I had no confidence. And he just pushed me in the right direction and said, you've got the capabilities to go to dental school. And if you sit down and put pencil to paper, you're going to find that hygiene school is not where you want to go. It'll take you so many more years to pay back your loans, for one thing. And second of all, you're going to hate it because you love doing so many parts of dentistry. So I give him, 90% of the credit of me going to dental school. My grandmother was the other 10.
Well, I mean, it's so interesting. So this happens with so many people. If there's somebody sees the potential in us that we don't see ourselves, and
right.
and it's just enough of a boost. I mean, this man changed the entire trajectory of your life. I mean,
absolutely.
That's an amazing thing, and I'm sure he finds it very gratifying to see you kicking butt like you are out there. As like, I was right. He gets to say it. I told you would be so mad if you were a hygienist right now, still trying to beat that loan down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's great. What's his name?
Greg Osborne, Dr. Gregory Osborne.
Yeah.
He's here, still practicing in San Antonio now.
Wow. I love hearing that stuff. That's just great. And what do you think that when you think about dentistry and you think about what other people think about dentistry, what do you think if people knew it about dentistry, what would surprise them? What are maybe misconceptions they have, or it's a sort of an open-ended question. So I want you to just sort of play with the idea of it. Of what do you think people don't understand about dentists and being a dentist or dentistry?
Well, I think for the most part, everybody's afraid of the dentist, the I guess the plague that kind of goes along with that, the dark shadow that kind of hangs over the word dentist. Yeah. All the movies make fun of dentists and they're not real doctors and, things like that. And I think that's one of the things that surprised me the most, is that there is kind of a lack of respect for dentists in the medical field. I've had patients that I've found multiple medications that they're taking that have interactions, and I've sent them to their doctors, and asked them to please review their medications, and gotten kickback from the doctors because I'm just a dentist. Why am I questioning the medications that these patients are taking? I think that's probably the biggest surprise I've had in dentistry.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating thing, having worked, with 800 dentists all of these years, and talking to, not talking to them myself, but millions of people and their misconceptions. But right. Yes, that other side of it, the medical community who basically won't diagnose the mouth. If somebody's sick all the time, they never notice that the person's horrible breath is an indicator that their body's been fighting infection in their mouth for decades or whatever.
Right. Right.
And that they were, and you want to say, hey, I got a prescription pad just like you, buddy. I know, exactly. The PDR backwards and forwards just like you. So, right. And I have that responsibility. And beyond that, people need to understand you're not just a doctor, you're a surgeon. Right. A typical GP, if they're doing surgery, they're doing stitches. Okay. That's right. The extent of it, and probably only okay at it. whereas you're doing surgery all day long.
Right.
And so it's almost like you want to say, I dare you to do what I do, for an hour.
Yeah.
You'll be whining about your back and your wrist and everything. And you'll say, wow, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. It's like, I work with soft and hard tissue all day long.
Right. Right.
And, I see more blood in an afternoon than you probably see in a career.
Oh, that's true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, they don't realize that when we're looking in a patient's head and neck area, that's something that patients don't really get examined by their physicians. I can't tell you how many thyroid cancers I've diagnosed, how many inflamed thyroids, how many, just thyroids that need to be biopsied or checked, or, cancers. I've found melanomas in the mouth. I mean, just things that regular physicians don't look at. They don't look for. They don't look in the mouth.
They don't look for it, and they don't have the technology. They don't have anything approaching a CBCT in their facility. That the diagnostic data that you have in your office far exceeds what the average GP has, and you're saving people's lives. That you want to say to the doctor, look, I saved you from a malpractice suit. Okay.
Exactly.
You didn't even know enough to look for this problem.
Well, I had a patient that came in that was, how old was she? 18, and came in for her regular cleaning. And I just seen her 6 months before, and I noticed a swelling on the left side of her neck. And I said, you know what? I want you to go get this checked because this is not normal. And it was thyroid cancer in an 18-year-old girl.
Wow.
And luckily they caught it early enough that it hadn't metastasized, but it's very aggressive. So they're treating it. But those are things that, would be missed if it wasn't for her going to her dentist regularly and having the right follow-ups on those things.
Wow. I mean, that's a scary thing, because she would have never even suspected it at that age, and certainly probably didn't even regularly go to a physician at that point.
Yeah.
So good for you, and what a great thing to get to do, knowing that you don't get the respect for it. I tell people this all the time. I said there's tremendous nobility in being a dentist, because there's such a lack of appreciation for the contribution you're making to that person's quality of life. Whereas, all doctors are, in the physician world are treated, as the elite, when some of them are not that good at what they do.
Right. I got a quick story for you, Fred.
Yeah, please.
So I was on a plane coming back from a course in Las Vegas, and they had an emergency, and they, had the little light that came on and said, anybody who's a doctor, can you please come back to seat so-and-so? And I sat there for a couple of times, and it kept ringing. And finally I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and respond. So I went back and started asking what was going on, and started treating the guy. And I said, well, I'm not a physician, but I'm a dentist, and, I'll do what I can. So I got him some fluids, and he started feeling better. He was just dehydrated from partying too much in Vegas. And a second stewardess came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, well, I've got a real doctor here now. You can go ahead and go back to your seat. And I looked at her and I said, excuse me? She goes, well, I have a real doctor here, so you can go ahead and go on back to your seat. And the young man that was standing next to her said, no, I'm a resident. I'm not even finished with, school yet. He said, she's doing fine. And she said, no, she told me to go sit back in my seat.
Wow. Wow. I see. I didn't even realize you weren't a real doctor, because I wouldn't have had you on this podcast. Oh, I'm shocked that you're not a real doctor.
Right. Who knew?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And she was sticking to her story, right? She had a clear understanding. Exactly. Doctor, dentist, here and here, right?
I
can't
think she
help
probably would have
anybody.
physically moved me if I hadn't gotten up and moved
Yeah, that
myself.
was next. She was going to twist your arm and bring you, escort you to your seat, or have the federal marshal on board shoot you or something.
Yeah, something.
Wow. That's like I say, it takes real nobility to do this profession when people can actually say something that dumb.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell that story again. That's a beautiful one. So let me just ask you, if you had to do it over, is there something you do different? Are there things you do differently?
I don't think so. I think I would get my fortune coach a little bit sooner. But 20 years ago, I don't think fortune was even around. But the things that I've had issues with are the things that fortune is really helping these younger doctors with these days. So they don't have to make those mistakes that I did to get where I'm at, because it took a lot of hurdles and a lot of mistakes to get where I'm at today. Wasn't easy.
Did you have to change a lot of systems or put systems in place where you didn't have them? Was that part of your process? Yeah,
there were no systems was most of the problem. There were no goals. There was no systems. I'd been trying to put them in place for years, but when you don't know what you don't know, you can't make improvements where you've got problems. So
yeah. And is Gene Williams your coach?
I'm sorry, Jennifer Surratt is my coach.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, she's below Jeannie.
I know the Texas coaches very well, and they're a great bunch. And and you're living proof that the impact, you being able to triple your production in such a in a 5-year span, a 6-year span, is amazing. So I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions that don't necessarily relate to anything. What's the worst meal you ever had?
The worst meal I ever had?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Or the worst thing you ever ate. Doesn't have to be a whole meal.
Oyster. I think it'd be an oyster.
There was one oyster and that was it. That was your first and last oyster.
Yeah, they're disgusting.
Oh, they're absolutely disgusting. I don't know how you gotta be really hungry to develop that the first guy who said, I think I'll eat this.
I don't know where that came from.
He was hungry.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or he couldn't get a fire going.
There you go.
They're better. And so if you could live anywhere in the world for a month, where would that be?
Oh, somewhere on a beach. I would live, I don't know, Roatan's pretty nice. My sister's in Porto, so maybe I'd go live with my sister for a month or so.
That sounds nice.
Beautiful there.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie and why?
Titanic, the long love story, and you know how it's going to end, but it's still awesome in between. It's kind of like a Hallmark movie. You know how it's going to end. It's just, how does it get there?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you know exactly what happens the whole time you're watching it.
But I still watched it 8 times.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've watched it several times and I'm never disappointed. Just very an amazingly well-made movie. It really stands up. The fact that it was made, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, maybe longer.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. But well, Dr. Walker, it's been great to have this conversation. I think anybody could benefit from hearing this story and be inspired by it. And so I really appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy practice to talk to me about your career. And I hope you triple your size again.
You, Fred. I appreciate you having me. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Have a great day. And
You
everyone, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with people, subscribe to it. And otherwise, keep on becoming remarkable.